Today, I thought of talking about Toy Story 2 for the PlayStation 1. Toy Story 2 obviously is based off Toy Story 2, the actual movie. One of the best sequels Pixar ever made. And it's honestly one of their best video game tie-ins that I have ever played. Usually the Pixar-based video game tie-ins tend to be good, but not all the time. For example, The Incredibles for the PlayStation 2 was not incredible. However, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, they were all fantastic. I had so much fun playing the Toy Story 1, 2, and Bug's Life. I've never played 3 yet, but I've seen gameplay of 3, and I do plan to pick 3 up eventually, because I like that movie as well. But we're going to be talking about the game first. How does Toy Story 2 play for the PS1? Well, if you're a platformer fan, well, this is going to be right up your alley. This is a collectathon. Every level has about 5 challenges for you to do, which will give you Pizza Planet tokens, which you can get up to 50 of them, and then you can complete the game. There are basically 2 levels where you collect things, and then you do a boss fight, and then you do 2 more levels where you collect things, then you do another boss fight. And you do all of that up to, I want to say, 10 levels and 5 boss fights, I think. We're going to break down each of the levels as I've remembered them. For example, the first level is, of course, Andy's house, where you play as Buzz Lightyear through the entire game, and the 5 challenges for every single level tend to be the exact same, with some minor variations. For example, in every level, you're going to have Ham, the piggy bank character, ask for 50 coins. There are coins scattered throughout the level, and they can be picked up through any means necessary. You can either pick them up as they're floating about the place, or you can destroy enemies and pick up the coins that the enemies drop as well. You can only pick up 1 per enemy. For example, if you find 1 enemy in Andy's bedroom and you beat him up and you get the coin, if that enemy were to respawn and you beat that enemy again, he will not drop a coin. So you can only get it 1 time, but you will easily get up to 50 coins easily in every single level, so that's not too much of a trouble at all. The next challenge is a racing challenge, or a time challenge. The first 2 levels, Andy's house and Andy's neighborhood, are the easy ones, because they're basically race ones. You race the RC race car around a track for 3 laps, and if you beat the RC race car, you will get a Pizza Planet token. The third one is always a boss fight. There are boss fights, mini-bosses, to fight in every level. They're not too challenging at all. In fact, when I played this for the first time on the PlayStation 1 many years ago, I actually had a hard copy of this game once when I was a kid. I don't have it anymore, but I had to pick it up again, so I have it digitally now. But when I played this when I was a kid, I thought these boss fights were incredibly difficult. I was very afraid of getting hit, so I was always running away and jumping aside from all of the attacks and trying to wait for an opening, and it ended up prolonging all of the fights and making everything a lot harder than it actually was. Because the trick to beating these games is to actually be aggressive. Don't be afraid of getting hit. Get in there and hit the enemy, and they will go down easily. And one of the MVP attacks, your Buzz's moveset is you could press X twice to double jump. You could press the square button to use his laser. If you hold down the square button, you could charge it for a charge shot. And then if you press the circle button, he'll spin his little wings that he could pop out, and those can hit the enemy, or it can also deflect oncoming projectiles. And if you hold down the circle button, he will do a spin attack, but he will become vulnerable for a few seconds after his prolonged spin attack, because he's spinning around like a top, and he will eventually get too dizzy. Triangle, I can't remember what that does. I don't think it does anything. The R1 button goes into a first-person aiming mode. And, no, I think it's L1 that does first-person aiming mode. Or is it R1? No, I can't remember. But it's R1 and L1 are both used for that first-person perspective. One of them is to open the first-person perspective. The other one is to target your enemies. And then you can use square to fire and hit them from a first-person perspective. And I love that they had so much attention to detail, because in this first-person perspective, you are actually looking at Buzz's face through his little helmet here, and that is very, very nice. Now, each boss is different. For example, in Andy's house, you will have to fight a toy robot. The toy robot will chase after you for a little bit, and he's immune to attacks while he's chasing you, but then he will eventually wind down and slow down, stop. Then you can turn around and hit him, and then repeat that until you beat him. And that's usually how most of these bosses work, is that they will have a vulnerability period, and you have to make use of that opening. And then you get a main boss fight. For example, after Andy's neighborhood, which is the second level, in the third level is a boss fight against an airplane thing. This airplane is going to be coming down at you, flying around, doing passes at you, and you have to hit it with a charge shot. Or you can hit it with your spin attack if it gets close to you, close enough to do it that way. I prefer to use the charge shot because it's just easier to hit from long ranged. You have to open up your first-person perspective to get good targeting aiming, but you should be able to take him out easily. And, of course, the fourth Pizza Planet token that you can get in most of these levels tends to be collect 5 of something. Throughout the whole level, you have to collect 5 of something. For example, in the Andy's house, Bo Peep has lost her sheep. 5 of them. So you have to go explore the level, usually doing various obstacle courses in various rooms of the house, and you'll find at least 1 sheep in each of the main rooms. There's usually 5 big places for you to explore, sometimes even 6 or 7 big places to explore. 5 of them will have the collect 5 items. 1 of them will have a hidden Pizza Planet token. So let's talk about that one. The 5th and final Pizza Planet token you can get in all of these levels is a hidden objective. It won't tell you what it is. You have to explore the level and find a hidden objective. Sometimes it's a puzzle, sometimes it's just located far away from something. For example, in Andy's house, I believe the Pizza Planet token, the hidden objective one, is, I want to say it's... I can't remember. I have a photographic memory, I don't have an actual wordographic one, so when I'm exploring the level, I find it immediately, but I can't recall it for some reason. Well, there is one puzzle that I can recall, because it's the very last level of the game, so we'll just skip ahead to the last level of the game. You'll find puzzles such as light puzzles in the Tarmac Trouble final level of the game. Before you do the final boss, there are some buttons on the ground, for example, that you have to stomp on to light up lights on a screen in front of you, and you have to match the top lights with the bottom lights. For example, there is a red light, a blue light, a green light, and a yellow light. And if only the red and blue lights are lit up at the top level, and the red light and green lights are lit up at the bottom level, you have to turn the green light off and activate the red light while keeping the blue light on to line up the same lights. And if you solve that puzzle, you can get the hidden Pizza Planet token. There are puzzles like this throughout all of the levels. For example, there's another one that I can remember. In Al's Toy Barn, there is a chicken that you could talk to who will say, run this obstacle course within this amount of time, and you will get a Pizza Planet token. So you go ahead and do that, and you'll get your Pizza Planet token. Talk to him again, and he'll let you get a chick. So there's various puzzles and things and people that you could talk to, and they'll give you hints, they'll give you objectives, and in every level you're going to find Rex, and Rex is the guy that you could talk to who will tell you which Pizza Planet tokens you're missing and where they're generally going to be located. So if you ever have trouble, if you ever need help with that stuff, just talk to him and he'll tell you where you're going to find stuff. The bosses are easy. I remember having so much trouble with the final boss, because you end up fighting 3 of the mini-bosses from Tarmac Trouble, from the baggage claim level, and from Al's penthouse levels. The last 3 levels of the game, the last 3 bosses that you fight in those 3 levels end up coming at you at the same time in the final boss level. And the trick to beat these guys is to get in their face and use the spin attack. It doesn't matter if you're taking damage, because the best part of this game and why it's so easy is that if you lose a life, you just respawn exactly where you were. The enemy boss's HP stays the same. So you just get your new life, you get your continue, and you're standing there right in the middle of the boss fight. So if you have more than 5 lives left for the final boss, don't worry about it. Just bull rush in and do your spin attack and take out the bosses one by one, and you'll be able to beat them very easily. I remember having so much trouble in that level, so much trouble, and I eventually lost all of my continues, and I had to get a game over screen, and that made me very upset. But your continues are very helpful. You can collect as many as you want throughout all of the levels. There's a lot of them are easy to get in the earlier levels, and you can return to these earlier levels to collect those continues to stack up on your continues for the later levels if you want to do that. Another thing to worry about is your HP, which is a battery life indicator. As you take damage, the battery life indicator will keep going down a little bit. There are batteries located throughout the levels that will increase your HP, and your HP will not refill when you leave a level and you go to a new one. For example, if your HP is critical after you complete Tarmac Trouble, then for the final boss level you will have critical HP, so you need to keep an eye on that. You need to keep an eye on your HP. If you're about to go into a boss fight, you may want to revisit an earlier level where you know where the batteries are located, collect the batteries, refill your HP, then leave that level, save your game, and then do your boss fight. It's not that hard at all. I would say that this is far easy. It's one of the easiest platformers you can play. Is it easier than Spyro, Ripto's Rage, Spyro, Year of the Dragon? Yes, I would say it is. I'd say it's a lot easier than Gex 2 and 3. It's piss easy compared to Crash Bandicoot. I've never played Super Mario 64, so I can't tell you about that. I know it's a crime and all that stuff. Well, guess what? I had a PlayStation. I didn't have a 64, okay? I went into the PlayStation. I didn't do 64. I took one look at that controller and I said, no, thank you. Give me one of these. They're very simple looking. And I picked the simple looking controller over that alien tripod. No, I never liked the Nintendo for its doohickeys. They're always trying to do something weird, something strange, and I know that's the popular thing about them. I do. It's all a perspective and opinion thing, okay? And your opinion, loving the 64, is completely at 100% valid. I don't want to take that away from you. I don't want to make you feel less for loving the 64. But for me, personally, I like a simple controller. I like having a simple controller that tends to look the exact same for the next console, instead of having to memorize a new doohickey, motion controls, 2 sticks motion controls, 2 screens, an alien tripod. No, just give me a simple controller. I don't want a motion control. I don't want to zip-zap, do the YMCA. I just want a simple controller, just a simple one. Very simple button layouts that remain the same each generation. It's very simple and easy to remember. It's just, that's how I like things, to keep things simple. And enough about that micro rant. But if I were to say, since I did play through Gex 1 through 3, I didn't finish Gex 1, I finished Gex 3, I almost finished Gex 2, then I used cheat codes to finish the rest of the levels. But Gex is definitely far more difficult than Toy Story 2. The collectibles are very easy to keep track of. There's 50 challenges, and then 6 bosses. The bosses are very easy, especially if you play aggressively. If you play aggressively, they will die in less than a minute. I'm telling you honestly, honest and truthful. Don't be afraid to lose your lives. You can always collect more of them in earlier levels, and they will stack. So don't be afraid to play aggressively. So you could do that. You'll beat the bosses. Everything is so easy in this game that it's basically an entry-level platformer. I will say it's an entry-level platformer and an entry-level shooter, because the shooting mechanics for Buzz's little laser doohickey is one of the better parts of the game. It's like baby's first shooter and baby's first platformer at the exact same time. I'd say it's far better than A Bug's Life. It's better than the Toy Story 1 game, which was a side-scroller. This one is full 3D. If you've been playing Spyro and you go into this, it's gonna feel right at home for you. The only thing I could say that might be a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a nuisance, a little bit of an annoyance is the camera. Luckily, you can have two camera modes, active mode and passive mode, which is what a lot of the later stage PS1 platformers tended to have, is an active mode camera and a passive mode camera. What does that mean? Active mode means is if your character turns this way, the camera will turn with your character, so that whatever your character's looking at is what the camera will turn to have you look at. In passive mode, if your character takes a turn, the camera will not turn with your character. You have to press the L2 or R2 buttons to turn the camera manually. So there are useful tricks and perks between both camera modes, because sometimes you want to be able to have an angle to the camera to see platforms that might, like for example, you're on a filing cabinet and drawers are opening and closing at fast rates, and you need to see from a side diagonal view, like you need to stand here and you need the camera to look that way, so that you could see the drawers, so that you could jump onto them in a timely manner. So active mode may not be that useful for you for those types of platforming obstacles. So you may need to switch to passive mode for that. Sometimes when you're in a more active type of environment where you're trying to run through an obstacle course really quickly and you don't need that type of angular precision, then you may need to go into active camera mode, because when you have Buzz do a 180 turn, the camera will turn quickly enough so that you could see in front of Buzz to get onto the next platform. Maybe there's a pole he has to swing on to get to another thing. There's all sorts of stuff that the active mode works best on. I used active mode for maybe 80% of the game, and passive mode for 20% just to do specific jumps. This game is a delight. I played it plenty of times when I was a kid, and I am so glad I decided to replay it. I got the itch to play this game again after reviewing Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. When I remembered that movie on the VHS tape and I said I was going to review that, I thought of the game, I realized I still had it, and I played it again, and I felt so nostalgic. It felt good. It's one of those feel-good games, games which you play, they're not too challenging, but you feel good while you play them. I think there's always going to be a market for feel-good games. I don't know if I reviewed Katamari Damacy, but I played that a couple months ago, and I fell in love with the chill atmosphere, with the music. It is one of the most calming games and satisfying games I have ever played, and I realized that I have been chasing those types of games more and more lately, just to feel good when I play a game late at night before I go to bed or something. I want to feel happy. I feel good. I don't want to get irritated and aggravated at a very difficult thing. I just want to go through and have fun, and there's always going to be a market for that type of casual playing, and Toy Story 2 is one of those that you can play at any age and it will still be fun.